Alright, Ian. So we're going to be talking about low point control here, or where the bottom of the swing arc is, right?
Okay.
And it is a big problem or a struggle area for a lot of players of getting that low point, which is the very bottom of the swing arc. Where we see a professional get that is about 4 inches in front, right?
Yeah.
And they get the golf club coming down, striking the ball, club going down into the ground like you just saw me do there, and then rising up again. And we see the average amateur golfer gets it about 2 inches behind. Now, a lot of players perceive that this is simply just because they're hanging back, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting through the ball. So then from that, we will then see that player do the following. Well, I need to get in front of it. Now, all of a sudden in transition, they're about 3 foot in front of the ball. This golf club is out in no man's land, and then they have to make some weird compensation. Now, that's obviously a huge exaggeration, but it kind of illustrates this quite well. So talk me through a player who in transition is getting too ahead of it. What should they do?
Well, first of all, I think that you kind of mentioned it there. You got to look back at the player's like perception of what they're actually trying to do, isn't it? So like, again, I'm going to make a big assumption that that player's got the perception that they need to get everything with their body in front of the ball in a certain amount of time early in downswing to allow them to get that sense of compression that they're looking for. That you mentioned in managing the low point, but I think a lot of golfers, they just intuitively go back to a feel when they struck the ball, that sense of compression, that strike.
Perfect.
So yes, like you see that very often with players. And you see even more so when you're playing into the wind, you're trying to compress it and flight it lower, and people get more ahead of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, so for me, the strike, the sense of compression, the managing the low point, it comes down to simplicity today. Let's just look at it. It's like how the club's unloading in the downswing. Now, when a player gets ahead of it, there's almost a reaction that the club almost moves further away. So they actually start to release the club a little early. They have to because they square the
Otherwise,
face.
they would miss the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to square. They're trying to square the face. They're trying to manage the loft a little bit because and this is, you can again go back to like almost the mental side of golf. They're trying to solve a problem by thinking, rather than if you let the brain kind of switch off, it's going to try and create a solution for them. So again, when you move ahead, it's the brain then responding, saying the ball's there, the target's there. Okay, this needs to happen. So as soon as they get ahead of it, most players, you're pretty much, unless you're going to be, you're a really strong player, and you can see like some of the players where they can shallow it through the lead arm, like a Lee Westwood kind of example. Most people just can't do that though, or just don't do that in that situation. So we're better off working on like looking at like, okay, how can we create compression without moving the head ahead of the ball too much? So simple, very clear, I find, for a lot of players, just to help with that release of the golf club. And I find it helps keep the head behind the ball at the same time, is to, from the top of backswing, can we get the lead elbow to beat the hand to the trail leg? So can we get the trail elbow to the trail hip before the hand gets to the leg? Because when a player moves ahead of it and they release it, it often starts looking like that.
Big time behind,
Yeah. So it's like, can we get the elbow to the hip before the hand gets to the leg? And that's sort of my reference point for players. Because then when they start rehearsing in the mirror, you'll notice now like the head doesn't move forward.
Correct.
So it's putting the attention more in how they're putting force into the handle. And essentially just creating that image in the mirror. And then just training on it at a slow pace and picking up speed when they feel like they're not getting ahead of it too much.
I really love that. And I'll just kind of echo what you said there and just add a little piece in, is just that a lot of the time when players are doing this movement here, then they go, okay, well, now I'll just stay further back. But the problem is they're still going to have for a period of time that same unloading pattern, which means that they're going to hit behind. Now, when you change your attention to something, it changes the whole intention around that movement pattern. So for example, if I say to myself, as an exaggeration, right now, I'm going to hit the ground over here, my body responds by making that move. If I say I'm going to hit the ground here through my attention, and I'm just focusing on that point, all of a sudden I've done the opposite. Now, just from that exaggerated simplistic form, you can see how much that changed the movement pattern of my body. And what you're saying here is that simply just by, if a player is getting too internally focused on, let's say, getting themselves, instead of being too far forward, now I need to be too far back, well, that's only just a very small piece of the puzzle, which is still not going to provide them with the results that they're looking for, because now they'll probably just hit behind, right?
Well, that's essentially that the reason they're getting the poor contacts is because of the way the club's unloading.
Very good.
So instead of going straight to like, okay, the head's moving forward, we have to stay back, it's like, well, let's just go to how they're loading the club and how it should be in backswing. And again, with that reference there of the elbow reaching the hip before the hand gets to the leg, from the top of backswing as well, if you see if you go through that, the angle between the lead arm and the club doesn't change very much either in that initial move down. So it helps get the player away from that widening move from the top of backswing into the downswing.
Yeah, and let's say, assuming all things being equal, the club face and everything's in a great orientation, because a lot of players do that because the face is open. But let's say that the club face is square as they're making this movement. And I love that sensation of getting the trail arm in front of that hip before the hands get there. Now, this is not me driving it into my body like a lot of players try and do. Do not do that, because that's going to get the lead shoulder high, cause a whole bunch of issues. What this is essentially doing, Ian's saying here, is it just slows down the rate in which your body is moving forward without you not stop trying to move your body forward, right? Yeah. It's getting to the top. It's bringing some attention to the thing or your hands, which are holding the golf club, which then produces that hit. Now, I would always couple this when a player was rehearsing, and we talk about layering these exercises on top, is that you would do that movement, let's say centered pivot to the top, rehearsing down in front. How does that look, Ian? Pretty good? Looks great. Looks great. And then I would say, after you've done that, have some intention of hitting the ground in line with the golf ball, right?
Oh, great idea.
Let's do that again. So we can swing to the top, rehearse, and then down in front. We can see that that divot is pretty much exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Slow and consider then extending on from that. Anything to add?
Do you know what? You actually just give me a great idea. If you just go to the top again, Kerrod, because again, this is all about how we're putting force into the handle, force into. One thing I'll do a lot is I'll actually push that. I'll say, okay, can you now push into my hand there, Kerrod? And maintain. Yes, there we go. So you're actually getting that sense of putting force into the handle down into that position.
Yeah, correct.
And you probably get a sense of how the lead side has to work then to pull the club to create that force as well.
Yeah.
So instead of it then just being a trail side feel, it's also incorporating the lead side and how both hands are putting that force into the club.
Yeah, perfect. So I love that, like combining that all together. Let's do one more slow rehearsal here, feeling like I'm really kind of creating this nice amount of space, which is going to allow me to get some more compression on that golf ball, get that low point forward. That feels great. I'm just going to map that out once more. Really feeling that. Let's recreate it. Oh man, that felt good.
That's a good one there.
Love it. Cheers.
Yeah.